The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Hosted by me, Carl B. Phillips, Uncle Carl.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Get ready for another great conversation on The Carl B. Phillips Show. This week's guest on The Carl B. Phillips Show, the pastor of Greater Grace Temple, Detroit, Bishop Charles Ellis III. Welcome to The Carl B. Phillips Show. Today's guest has been pastoring Greater Grace Temple in Detroit for the past 29 years. He's the former presiding bishop of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the world. He is a husband, father, and grandfather. Please help me welcome Bishop Charles Ellis. Let me go sanctify. Praise the Lord, Bishop Ellis. How are you?
Praise the Lord, grace and peace. How you doing? What up, though? As they say in Detroit.
There is but one Lord, one faith, and one baptism, one God who's above us all. It is that will forever be in my mind from your dad.
Our being, yes, indeed.
As I stated, I'm going to do an icebreaker question. If you lost your cell phone, how many of your contact numbers could you recall from memory?
I've got probably about 1,300 numbers in my phone. So I'm going to say I am proud to say that I could recall 8 telephone numbers.
8 telephone numbers?
8 telephone numbers.
And how long have those people had those numbers?
That's my wife, my son, my daughter. So as long as they've had phones. And I know Teresa's number, and I know a few of my staff's numbers. It's amazing how we used to remember like 50 numbers back in the day when we had to, and now we're just spoiled. And you know what they say, if you don't use it, sometimes you might. Yeah.
But nowadays people change numbers so much. I'm like, why am I wasting that brain space? You're going to change next week.
I've been blessed to have my number. It's the same number it's always been. I've been having a problem a couple today and yesterday. I think it was today or yesterday, and I forgot that everything changed. You have to dial the area code number now.
Oh yeah,
yeah, absolutely, because they're coming up with a new area code. I think it's 679. It's coming up this month. So and I have area code numbers in my phones for everybody. But sometimes I'm just dialing people and I dial it. It's not going through. Come on now. Come on. Like, oh, man, probably you got to dial the whole 10 digits now or whatever it is.
It reminds me back in the day when we got the 248 area codes and
oh my God, 810. Absolutely.
We're telling our age, Bishop.
The phone is not broke. Do not go pay $1,200 or $3,000 for a new phone. Just dial the area code and everything will. My demon in my phone is not a demon. The devil is something else, but we can't blame everything on him.
I've recently read a post on Instagram where you said, for 37 years, I've been blessed to walk hand in hand with my wonderful wife, First Lady Chrisette Ellis. How has having Chrisette by your side enhanced your life and your ministry?
I couldn't do what I do without her. She is forgiving. She is strong. She's resilient. She's a prayer warrior. She's an entrepreneur. She'll tell you what you don't want to hear. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. And sometimes, those of us who have been successful in some things and those of us who have been leaders, sometimes we need people like that in our lives. Never get angry with people that are trying to help you.
One of the other things I remember you said years ago, First Lady Chrisette, she's been a part of Mary Kay forever. You just talked about her being an entrepreneur. I remember you once spoke of how when you're in her world, your titles don't matter. You're just Chrisette's husband.
Not at all. People see us flying to all parts of the world. Man, your wife must be lucky you're taking her. Like, no, I'm not taking her. She's taking me. Hey, Carl, and my wife puts it this way. My husband has taken me all over the country. She said, but I've taken him all over the world. And I'm like, I said, that is absolutely correct. And I tell people all the time, I say, listen, I'm not bankrolling her Mary Kay. I buy things in bulk for some of our seniors at Ellis Manor. And when we give away things on Mother's Day, but I'm not buying anything for her to meet quotas or whatever. She's put in the work. She rolled up her sleeves. And for 31 years, she reached the top of the top. So, I've been her chief supporter, and I've been able to keep my feelings, off my sleeves because When I'm at the convention center down there in Dallas every year, this Asian lady walked up to me one time. She said, hey, Chu. I'm like, Chu? I'm the presiding bishop of the Pentecostal. She talking about, hey, Chu, take a picture of me, Chrisette. I'm like, give me that camera. Get on out my face. Yeah, I'm just a photographer, and that's it, and I'm okay with that.
So what does it mean to you to support her dreams and aspirations?
I think that that's the least that I could do for somebody who supports me. And I made a statement early on when it was just her and I, and we were trying to have children. And I said to her, I said, listen, I'm going to support you as much as you have supported me, because nobody has to live in my shadow. And I pray that I'm able to cast a big shadow, and that my kids can find some shelter, safety, opportunities, open doors, and all of that, from what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, I will not consider this house successful unless everybody in this house is successful. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud to say my kids have done some fabulous things, and they're their own persons, and they're not trying to do what I do. They're moving on as God is leading them.
So how many kids do you have, and what are some of the things they've accomplished?
My son is, my daughter is 35. My son is 33. And he's got a 20-month-old this month. My daughter has a 4-month-old this month, June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, she has a 4-month-old daughter, and my son has a 20-month-old son. They are the joy of our lives. My daughter, she's now pink Cadillac driving Mary Kay Cosmetics. My wife didn't make her do anything, didn't make her get into that at all. Sometimes your kids see what you're doing, and they grow up in it, and they see what looks to be success, and they say, hey, I need to go on and do that. She went and got a degree at University of Michigan. She worked with the Elections Commission with a daughter of the House, the Honorable Janice Winfrey, and she just determined that, she would just want to do her own thing, be her own, work on her own time, entrepreneur, make as much money as she wanted to make, and not deal with a salary. So that's what she's done, and she's a pink Cadillac driver, like her mom. Her mom retired. Chrisette retired this year. Yeah, she retired this year, and I believe it was January, February. So Kara is now carrying on that legacy, and she's doing phenomenal. My son, he got his degree at Michigan State in finance, and went to Wayne State and got his master's degree. And he's flipping houses. He's working for our charter schools in accounting. He's working at the church in accounting. He's over our team ministry, our team pastor, and he's in ministry now. And I'm just proud of him. And I didn't tell him what to do. I didn't say, now the Lord wants you to be. Listen, I want my kids to be happy in their life. I don't want them to be trying to measure up to nobody but what God has called them to do. And it's just amazing that he's kind of following in my footsteps, and my daughter's kind of following in her mom's footsteps. Wow. And I promise you, we did not push them in any direction.
You talked about your grandson. Those of us that follow you on social media, we know about the milkman.
Yeah. The milkman. And listen, he has his own cheering section. He has his own following. He's just a joy. I have the privilege, Carl, of carrying on my grandfather's name, who founded the Indiana Avenue Pentecostal Church of God in Chicago. Pastored for, I think, 51 years by Bishop Charles Davis before he made his transition. And now Bishop Mark Moore is the pastor there now, him and his wife, Shirley Boone Moore, Bishop Boone's daughter. Mm-hmm. And, so my grandfather was a great man. He died at 53 years old. My dad was only 18. So I never knew my grandfather. I have one cassette tape of my grandfather preaching. He sounds just like my dad, or my dad sounds just like him. But he died in 53. My dad got married in 54, the next year, to my mom. So here we come. And my dad always said, out of the 6 boys that were living and that had been born to my father and grandfather and grandmother, none of the other 4 boys above him, A.D., Sam, James, and Emmanuel, none of them had named their children, after their dad. And so my dad said, I don't know what Willie's going to do. And I think Uncle Willie was 12 when my grandfather died. My dad was 18. And Ray's mom, Monsina, I think she just turned 88. So she's 2 years younger than my dad. She was 16. So there were kids in the house when my grandfather died. And he was preaching the Indiana Council in Gary, Indiana, in 1953. Sat down after he preached that Friday night, had a heart attack.
Wow.
They were able to get him to Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago a couple of days later, and he died that next Friday. My father said if he ever has a son, forget about his name, David. He's going to name his first son after his father. Wow. Because I understand that my grandfather did have a junior, but he died at 18 months old. So that's how I became Charles Ellis III.
So now back to the milkman. What's the milkman's? I don't even know his name.
He's Charles H. Ellis V. I'm trying to do what my dad did. I'm trying to
keep the name alive.
My father's name alive. He died so young. So I named my son the fourth, and then milkman is the fifth. And I tell you, it's amazing to watch kids grow. And this is our first journey with grandchildren, and he's teaching us so much. They learn so quick. They see what you do. If you hit a switch, if he's on this computer, if he wants to sit on my lap, he would be hitting these buttons on the computer, and he knows whether something is moving or not. So if it's not moving, he's looking for that button that will cut it on. And if you could have it on something that's playing, he knows that when he hits those buttons, things are supposed to happen. He knows that when he gets a remote, something's supposed to happen. So you got to watch what you do around him, because if he sees you and hears a click, he's going over there and he's going to keep hitting until something clicks. I mean, it's amazing how fast they grow and how much they learn.
Now he's also driving.
He does have a car. He was afraid of it at the very beginning. And I mean, that was me rushing. It's for a 2-year-old. I think it's for 2 and 4 years old. So I had him in there like 11 months or whatever the case is. But now he gets in it now, and he's going. And Carl, we knew that it had a Bluetooth or something, because you could see where you could stick a cord in, and you can maybe program your phone. And we couldn't figure that thing out for nothing. So I just forgot it. But because he pushes buttons all the time, he's driving. It has a like it's starting up, and it has a horn, but it has buttons over here. And he was pushing, but he pushed the music sign buttons, and the music started playing. And he's in there going like, I looked at Chris, I'm like, the baby showed us how to cut the music on in this car. So he is, man, when he comes over, car, he's got to get in his car and he's ready to roll. So he's not afraid anymore.
You have been pastoring Greater Grace for 29 years. And I recently read that in 2027, the church will celebrate 100 years of existence. Talk about carrying on the legacy, which was started by Bishop Ellington Forbes, and then the legacy was carried on by your father, the late Bishop David L. Ellis.
Yeah, Bishop Ellington Forbes he was a Bohemian. And Carl, he's responsible for the apostolic movement in the islands of the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. Bishop Samuel Dawkins and David Dawkins and all of those were his spiritual sons. He migrated to the States, I think, at 12 years old with his mother to the Miami area. And he ended up here in Detroit and was at Clinton Street, Greater Bethlehem Temple. And I believe he asked Bishop Hancock, for permission to start a church. Mm-hmm. And he did that. And so he started this church in 1927 in his living room with his wife and mother-in-law, just 3 people. And of course, they never really owned any property. They were moving from place to place. And by the time, and he left after a while and went back to the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. And that's where he began to preach the apostolic doctrine. And he founded the church there that Bishop Dawkins left behind for Suffolk and Bishop Menace. So they have the city of David down there, Greater Bethel Cathedral, and said, well, y'all sister churches. I remember when my dad got here, the church was called New Bethel. It was Bethel Temple, and then it was New Bethel Temple. My dad changed the name to Grace Apostolic Temple. And Bishop Golder was his mentor. He loved Bishop Morris Ellis Golder in Indianapolis, Grace Apostolic Church. And the reason that my dad changed the name, it didn't have anything to do with trying to do away with Bishop Ford's memory or anything like that. But the church was so poor at that time that they didn't have a good name in the business community. Okay. So just like sometimes people have to change their name, that he changed the name to Grace Apostolic Temple. And then, of course, when we moved to Cambridge and Schaefer, it was Greater Grace Temple of the Apostolic Faith. So that's how it became. So we were actually Bethel Temple, same as Bishop Forbes named the church down in the Bahamas.
So if I remember correctly, when your dad started, the church was on Dexter?
Puritan and Dexter in 1962. He came, and I believe he came in June. Yeah, he came in June because the first Sunday, a Sister Ruth Berry and her husband came out of Clinton Street, Greater Bethlehem Temple, and they lived in the Boston Edison district on Longfellow. We're kind of well-to-do, and she was handling the books of the church, and I believe that she had a finance background or what have you. And I have the actual ledger books for that first Sunday in June 1962. The total tithes, offering, everything was $87.39.
Wow.
I have the ledger book. She had everybody's name in. Deacon Willis Kite, $1.50 and $2 tithe. I mean, it's amazing looking at this history. And I'm like, man, my dad left Chicago, had a good government job, working for the transportation department, driving the buses. And my mom had a good job. My mom said, we just got 2 government jobs. And she was working for the immigration department. And she said, we got 2 good jobs and we got benefits and everything. Yeah, we live in the projects, but everybody lives in the projects. And now this man said, we going to Detroit. Going to Detroit to what? And Bishop Golder told my dad, he said, Dave, don't take that church. That church doesn't have any money. It's just a few people there. They've been struggling for all these years. Bishop Ford was a good man, but he could never get things rolling there or build a congregation there. Mm-hmm. And my dad said it was at the youth convention in St. Paul, Minnesota. And he said Bishop James Johnson was preaching, and my dad was the youth president at that time in the PAW. And he said Bishop James Johnson preached the message, for me to live as Christ, for me to die as gain.
Wow.
And he said he heard God's voice say to him on that stage in Minneapolis, in St. Paul, Minnesota, Detroit is where I want you. So he left his dad's church. He was a minister of music there, came to Detroit and never looked back. And never looked back. So it's a remarkable story, and my dad is a testament of faith. He came in, they elected him in January. He didn't accept till June. Deacon David Claxton and Apostle Bernard Haddon, they were the ones that nominated and seconded him to get in the running. My dad was in the running. Hoodie Hope, the elder Hoodie Hope was in the running for the church, and a pastor named Johnson out of or Western Wayne County. And because they let the young people vote, Mado Wathen and those, all of those, the young people said, listen, Bishop Forrest was 59 and 9 months when he retired. My dad was 26. And some of those older people were, they said, man, we know him because, he's a youth president and we have relationship, because I'm told that Bishop Forbes used to take the choir to my grandfather's church, 35th Street, Chicago, and vice versa. So the 2 churches had great fellowship. So everybody knew my dad, especially those young people, because he was a youth president. And he said, some of those older people were just saying, no, we like him, but man, he like my kid. He's like my son. He came pastor us. And I'm saying, man, now y'all got a 67-year-old pastor. I better be trying to get up out of here. I said, my dad died at 60 and 6 months. Bishop Ford retired at 59 and 9 months. I told the church this when I turned 61, I said, I'm the oldest pastor y'all ever had. So I don't know how long y'all gonna put up with me or stick with me, but I got to be finding my way up out of here sometime soon. Remarkable story.
I'm loving this apostolic history that you're sharing. There was another post recently that stated, I believe it was from your Instagram page, he was a father to myself and my siblings, but also a father in the faith to countless others. Speaking of your dad, Bishop David L. Ellis, what does being a son of Bishop David L. Ellis mean to you?
I've never been in competition with my dad, and I say that respectfully, because I know I heard so much when we were building the city of David on the Edgewater Amusement Park site, and they, man, he trying to outdo what his dad did. I'm like, man, my dad did $4 million. I got an $18 million debt for a $36 million project. I could have been a $10,000 project and outdid $4 million or $10 million, outdid $4 million. I said, man, I stepped out on faith because I really felt it was time. My father bought that property in 88, said if we ever have explosion of ministry and growth, we'll have a place to build. And I felt that was the time, So my dad was, man, listen, I watched my dad. I watched my dad build and retire mortgages and add on and retire that debt. And I mean, he was always building and burning. We said, man, that's the most building and burning man I've ever seen him out. Can we just pay off everything and just be still and rest for a while? But he was always doing, and Carl, you know him, he was ahead of his time. Federal Credit Union, Christian school, daycare, Montessori program, duplexes down the road. And before he died, we just built the Ellis Manor apartment for seniors, funeral home, travel agency. My dad he was really way ahead of his time. Him and Farmer Zeke, had that corner locked down. The produce market across the street and David Ellis on the other side. So he was ahead of his time, man. So that's all I know. All I know is you ought to be doing something. And that's why I'm in the foster care development that I'm doing downtown Detroit now, almost $100 million of development with 211 affordable housing units and 4 apartments down there, right there at the Brewster Rec Center. I'm excited. People say, man, how you doing? I said, man, my dad was always doing something. So I'm just trying to carry on the legacy of don't wait to die and don't be afraid to step out. If God is with you, right. Then, somebody said, I think it was Bishop Jakes I heard say, if your vision doesn't scare you, then it's not big enough.
Wow. That's deep. I'm loving this apostolic history. But I'm going to do another random question.
Okay.
What is your favorite parable of Jesus?
Two of them, 3 of them actually. The prodigal son. I mean, that's just tremendous forgiveness and restoration. When you've been disrespectful and give me my stuff, and then when you get your stuff, you go to a far country. I would have moved across the street. So at least if I get hungry, I can just run over there and get me something. But the Bible says not many days after he took his journey in other words, he said, y'all stay out of my business. Don't be driving down my street. Don't be trying to find out what I'm doing. I'm grown. And of course, made a mess of things. But he came to himself, came back home and found out that his father was bigger than he could have ever imagined, because he just wanted to get in the house or live out in the stables areas or whatever the case is. So that's a favorite one. Then the one that talks about the man who would build bigger barns. And that's where I am, what I'm doing now. I think my ministry in the pulpit is coming to a close, but I'm still going to be ministering to young men aging out of foster care and trying to change lives. And we've given away shoes and coats and hats and gloves and food and meals and all of that and school supplies. But that changes a day. I'm really where I'm going now. I'm trying to change a life, give you a place to stay, the safe, and give you wraparound services. So you don't even want to be here because this 1 bedroom is claustrophobic because maybe you have a baby or a baby mama or whatever the case is. So that's where I am now. And that's, I don't want to retire out of the pulpit and say, so take it easy. You have done well. And now just live at the country club, play some golf, enjoy the grandchildren. My soul might be required of me. I better stay busy doing something. Right. So that's a favorite one of mine because that man already had everything, but he said, I'm tear down these barns and build bigger barns. Well, that has nothing to do with anybody else. That has to do with him and his. And he said, and tell my soul, hey, take it easy. You got enough to live forever. But the only thing is you don't control how long you live. Right. My third one, and I'll conclude, is the man that fell among thieves on the Jericho road. That's a good one there because the priest, he was coming down the road, but when he saw that there was something interrupting his ministry, interrupting his service to God, he crossed on the other side of the street because I got to hurry up and get to the temple and to perform my duties and stuff because I got to take care of the Lord's business. Understanding what that is laying on the road. And then here come the Levites. They might be the praise team, or they might be the ushers and greeters, or they might be any kind of ministry in the church. At least they came and stayed on the road and looked at the man and said, man, he jacked up, man. Somebody done him in. And they kept going. But here comes the Samaritan. He stops, tries to bind up wounds as best he could. and then puts him on his beast and takes him into town and provides through the resources they have there and pays and promises don't cut his treatment off. Don't. His Obamacare might not last that long, but don't cut it off. When I come back this way, I'm going to pay whatever you've done that what I gave you didn't take care of. And Carl, that says you don't have to be super religious, because this was a Samaritan. You don't have to be a super spiritual person. Do you want to help somebody?
Right.
And if you do, just get in and do it. Get in where you fit in. And I say this, if everybody does a little something, no one person or persons have to do a lot of something.
Wow.
So just get in and do something. And well, man, I ain't no pastor. You don't have to be a pastor. Well, man, I don't even go to church. You don't have to go to church. Just give somebody some water, give somebody a sandwich, or just help somebody.
One thing I've learned in ministry, I don't have to have a title, like you said, in order to minister to somebody. My ministry could be a text message. Hey, man, I miss you. Hey, bro, I love you. You okay? And I think a lot of times, like you said, a lot of people, and this wasn't on my list of things to talk about, but a lot of times in ministry, we think that, like you said, you have to have a title, but you don't.
Carl, you really stepped out on faith, and you took a chance in jeopardizing yourself, because if you that long in church and not an elder or district elder or trying to pastor, what's wrong with you? Man, what you do that they ain't forgiving you of? What went on in your life that they blackballed you? I mean, you just can't serve the Lord and be impactful where you are. It feels that, and that's that parable of the man on the Jericho road. The priests did nothing, didn't even come to look up close, passed on the other side of the road, and the church folk and servers and minstrels and ministers or whatever, they looked at him and kept going because they didn't want to be late for service.
Right.
And here comes the Good Samaritan. He didn't need a title. He didn't even need to be of the household of Israel, but he stopped to help that man. And at the end of the day, I don't believe God is going to ask me nothing about my presiding bishopric. I don't believe he's going to ask me nothing about however many years I pastored Greater Grace. He's going to ask me, when somebody was hungry, did you feed them?
Right.
When they were naked, did you clothe them? When they were thirsty, and you know the rest of it.
One thing I've learned, and I've been saying this a lot lately, ministry begins after amen. Yeah.
I've gone to some churches, and I will say most of them been Caucasian churches, and they have signs on the door when you're entering the sanctuary that says "Enter to worship." And on the inside sanctuary portion of the door that you're exiting out, it says exit. It says exit to serve.
Right.
And I've always saw that, and I said, man, I don't know whether we really understand that, because we come in to dance, we call it shouting, but of course we don't dance, so we can't call it dancing. So when we say shout, we get to go on and kicking heels. Well, shout means to shout. No, you mean you were dancing? No, we don't dance. No, man, don't even mention dancing. We as apostolics, man, I'm gonna tell you, we as sanctified, for we have just changed names, meanings, phrases, and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? It is our phraseology. We understand it. But sometimes when we're speaking in the broader religious community, they like, what
What you talking about, anointed?
Yeah, do they know that they dancing? No, they dance. They shout. They don't. I mean, but at the end of the day, I've seen that on many churches. Enter to worship, exit to serve, and that goes on what you just said.
Let's talk about the musical legacy of Greater Grace Temple.
Wow! Oh wow!
So when I came around, there was a young man on drums. And that young man played for the Donaldville Choraleers. Donaldville was the minister of music. What was it like? One of my favorite stories that you told, how Gene Hodge used to pay you $75. Mm-hmm. What was the What was it like being in that era of the church when you were the church drummer? You had Donald Vales coming in, you had all these great artists coming into the church. What was that era like?
It was a great era. Greater Grace's legacy goes way before Donald Vales. Bishop Apostle Clarence Hatton was the choir director.
Mhm.
Irvin Williams, Mike Williams from the commission, his dad was the organist. So they were rocking and rolling. And I say that jokingly. They were rocking and rolling back then. That church would go tambourines all over the place, and list goes on, drums and the whole 9 yards. But now when my dad gets there, he's a musical person because he was the minister. He would have been the minister of music and assistant pastor at his dad's church. His dad is dead now, and District Elder Akins is pastor. So my dad comes and he's able to say, okay, I want this choir to be a little better. It wasn't that Bishop Hatton wasn't, he was young at that time. I think he might have been 20. My dad was 26. I think they're about 6 years apart. So my dad looked down the street, and because my grandfather was very ecumenical, Bishop Ford, Lewis Ford of the Church of God in Christ, who was the presiding bishop, chief apostle right after Bishop Patterson died. And they were great friends in Chicago, churches up the street from each other. So my dad was always comfortable with everybody. Right. And when he looked up and saw that Mattie Moss Clark, Dr. Clark, and her husband were passing right on Puritan and Homer, just 3 blocks down the road, he went down and talked to him, and Dr. Clark, and she knew of him when he started mentioning Sarah Jordan Powell's name and those, and Esther from E-Course. They were schoolmates and stuff back in Chicago. She was with my Aunt Cena. So when he started mentioning those names, he said, I need you to come down and would you be mind coming teaching my choir or something? Man, no, you don't want the Trinitarian. My dad could care less about that. He wanted the choir to own 3-part harmony. And I think we still say that Dr. Mattie Moss Clark was the one that brought choirs in the 3-part harmony. Yeah. They were just singing like a church singing hymns and congregational songs. But that's how we began that relationship. That's how the Clark sisters and all us became our cousins and stuff. Their mom came down and helped my dad with choir right down the street. Now, fast forward, we start getting musicians coming to Greater Grace. My dad is, he's going, he's a young man. He's making a lot of noise. He's got a good preaching ministry, very charismatic. He loves everybody. He makes everybody feel like a friend. And so now we get over into the synagogue in 1970, and Donald Vales joins the church and gets saved, I believe, in 76. I want to say 74 or 7. I want to say 76 because I'm already playing drums. And then he enlists me, Danny Burchett, to play the bass guitar, Lee Davis to help with keyboards with Robert Nix and Geraldine Duncan, those who would keyboard for the Corliers, and last but not least, Kenny Wilson.
Right.
And so we came on board with the Corliers. Jean Hodge and Faye and Darlene, they became my sisters. I used to go to their house on a Friday night, and their mama would tell them, pull out one of them steaks and make my son a steak and cut him up some French fries. I mean, they'd be peeling potatoes saying, he ain't nothing but a drummer. I mean, just to look. Their mom loved me, and I love getting in with moms and the older. I made them feel always good, complimenting them and all that. And I tell you, man, you can't mess up. Take care of those seasoned people. I don't call them seasoned people. They never forget. And so, man, I mean, those were great days. We were doing those concerts at the Ford Auditorium. James Cleveland would bring the greatest gospel show on earth, and would bring all those national acts in. And I was playing with Donald Vale down there. I got to play with the Williams brothers once when their drummer got sick. And Donald Vale said, I got a drummer that can nine. So I got to play over Jim Holly's church at a concert they did. And I mean, it was a great time. The one experience I had, I played for a Baptist church, a prominent Baptist church over in Inkster. And they wanted me to come and play for their choirs concert at Inkster High School. I made 2 rehearsals and played that concert. And Carl, I was supposed to get $100, one C note, $100. And that was probably, Carl, in like 78, 79. Carl, I had to wait 6 weeks to get my $100. I'm driving my little duster out there. I'm driving my little duster out there to Inkster, man, to the Inkster Road in Michigan. Oh, I done told the location. I rode out there. Well, the pastor's not in today. I'm sorry, Brother Ellis, Bobby Frambro. Oh, I done told. I got to put names out there. Carl, I tell my musicians now, do y'all know how blessed y'all are? Do you know how blessed you are?
Very blessed.
It took me 6 weeks to get my $100 for that concert at Eastern High School. Hey, and I was still happy. I was doing it because I love to do it. And I tell the musicians all the time, Carl, y'all are blessed now. You are blessed to make a living out here doing what you do.
One of my fondest memories, excuse me, Thanksgiving concerts, Thanksgiving night musicals. I was baptized on a Thanksgiving concert back in 1974 at Greater Grace Temple.
Is that so?
Yes, sir. So those concerts, I was a part of the Cass Tech Gospel Choir. Chris Arthur was our spiritual advisor.
Correct.
So when Grace did something, Cass was always a part. So that's how I learned holiness from Sunday night services coming to Greater Grace Temple. Being in testimony services and hearing about being baptized in Jesus' name. So the musical legacy of Greater Grace has impacted my life. Just, being there, I was on a conversation with your sister and I talked about how on Sunday mornings we would listen to the radio broadcast so we would know what our choirs would sing because of what Grace would sing.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I tell people we're blessed with tremendous legacy. You got Fred Hammond and Byron Cage and Donald Vales and you got Michael Williams and Mitchell Jones and the list just goes on and on. I'm probably missing and now you got the Burchett girls and Antea Burchett is the coach for the girl, the African American girl from the Wiz. Not the Wiz, Wicked.
Yep.
Wicked,
yep.
Yes, she is her. I can't think of her name, but you all know. And she played Aretha Franklin in that biopic. And Antea is Anisha is writing songs, and Angela Burchett is on Broadway, and Kenny Horn, is a jazz phenomenal, right here in Detroit, Michigan, and surrounding areas. And to think all these folk came out of Greater Grace and got their start with the youth choir, and children's choir, Celestial Voices. It's just, when I look at the legacy, it is absolutely tremendous. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
So that I kind of had a couple of names. We left out Luann, who ended up singing in Witness. Also absolutely. Did the lead on Prepare to Meet Him.
Correct. Absolutely.
One of the first recordings. I'll never forget that night. I was sitting in the audience. I was like in heaven.
Absolutely.
You have members of 2103, members of Ramaya.
Absolutely.
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee. Absolutely, man. We could go on and on.
We have to talk about your sister Teresa,
Louise McCord.
Yes. We have to talk about Teresa and her era as minister of music. Of course, you have the Prepare to Meet Him album, The Lord Will Save You, and also Grace and Praise.
Yes.
And your dad doing Joy Bells Keep Ringing in My Soul.
Oh my God.
Produced by, of course, Greg Pearson and Mike Williams. Talk about the Grace and Praise album.
Grace and Praise album. I was sitting right next to Dr. Leonard Scott, Bishop Leonard Scott. Ty Scott did that album for us. And I was sitting right next to him. And when my dad got up and got that congregation going, went down through the years and jumped in the Joy Bells and that thing rocked, Leonard Scott said, that's going to be the hit. I know Bishop was an add-on, but I'm telling you, that's going to be a hit. And man, that song, I could Google down through the years and AME churches and Presbyterian churches, and everybody's singing that song. And down through the years, and of course, Joy Bells, it was a tremendous musical piece. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Now, after 28 years of not doing music, recently, Bishop Charles Ellis and Greater Grace Worship Choir, produced by your current minister of music, Elder Derico Lloyd, has released a new album featuring several top gospel artists. What has it meant to you to return to recording with your church?
I think it continues the legacy. We did it during a good time. Everybody in the country was down during COVID. Everybody was separated and nothing. I mean, Carl, do you remember we weren't even hearing names. We were just hearing statistics. You know, this week, 320 something people have died in Michigan and 3,080 something, whatever, in the United States. And we were getting that at the end of every week and not even knowing these people that had left here and people just being buried without the funerals that they deserve, the homegoing celebrations they deserve. Dorico came to me and said, Bishop, man, can we put together an album? I said, they still call them albums? What? He said, yeah, but he's, can we? I said, well, how are we going to do it? Because we got to be 6 feet apart and all that. He said, no, there's a safe way we can do it. Now everything is electronic. Everything is easier than it used to be. And equipment is technologically savvy, that we can bring the group in to do their part and another group in to do their part and put it all together and boom, we got an album. And that's how we did it. So we didn't risk anybody's life. We didn't put anybody in jeopardy. We did it in a very safe way. I'm proud that we have so many individuals, Jonathan Nelson, Michael Lemkin, Paul Porter, Vernon Bird, Lillian Lloyd, and Byron Rutley, Crystal Rucker, so all these people we brought in because we really want to show the Greater Grace Temple has always been a welcoming place. Mm-hmm. And while we're apostolic, my dad apostolic to the bone, he loved everybody. He can enjoy anybody's preaching as long as it was sound in the word. He can enjoy anybody singing, and we wanted to keep that spirit with this piece that we had not done in about 28 years.
So you left one name off of it as a soloist. He's also the co-writer of the song "Done for Me."
Yeah, I wrote "Done for Me" like 3 years before Dorico even brought this to me. And what I do, Carl, is sometimes I'll get a melody in my head, and what I do is I just call my voicemail at my office, and I'll just say. And then I said, man, I need to put some words to that, man, because I like that, and I put some words to it and never did anything with it. And thank God it was saved on my voice. It was saved on my voicemail. I said, Dorico, you can do the album. I got a song for that album. It's called "Done for Me." And I said, I think it's a good song. Of course, I don't know, but I know music now. But I don't know about writing songs and all of that, but I know it has a good melody. And it turned out to be a very successful song.
So how did it feel? Your dad on the last project did a song, but on this project, you're leading the song also. What was that like for you?
I mean, it's a whole new world. I mean, we've gone out. People requested us to come, and you got to do that song with Bishop. So I'm not even asked to preach. I'm asked to come and sing. So wait a minute now. I think I just crossed over. I think as a musician, I can say, okay, my honorarium, and here's my rider. I want Aquafina, and I want Fruit Punch, Gatorade, Zero Gatorade. I said, man, Carl, man, I tell you, boy, it's a whole different, it's a whole different world out here now. Marvin Winans said, bring back the days of yea and nay. When it was just simple back then.
Also, for this recording, you formed Graceful Records, which is headed by longtime member Walter Kearney, who is known for his work with the production company Pajam. What's the vision for the label?
The vision for the label is to provide those individuals who cannot aspire to get on those well-known labels, but still have something they want to get out. Sometimes, Carl, people just want to get a project out. Right. Because they feel that God called them to do a project and they just want to get it out. You hope it does well, but if it doesn't do well, you feel that I've accomplished that. And sometimes it's on people's bucket list, or they can check that off of their lives. And Graceful Records, amen, it is a first-class studio, first-class technological savvy equipment. And again, you can do things easy now, whereas it took a whole 2,000 square foot building with all these. Now you can do it very simplistic. So I'm very proud of Graceful Records and all those people that might be viewing us right now. If you have a project, you got something on your heart or in your heart or whatever, you want to give it a try, Graceful Records is there to receive you. Absolutely.
So what's next for Bishop Charles Ellis and the Greater Grace Worship Choir?
That will be up to Dorico. I've checked my bucket list. I wrote my song and I did a few engagements. I'll do some more if they want, or whatever the case is.
Well, now earlier you said that when you retire, maybe
Yeah, but
God is giving you that career for when you retire.
I don't think I'm following my friend Charles Jenkins. I think when I retire, it's all about the sanctuary at Brewster, which is an apartment, 52 single bedroom units, 600 square foot for young men aging out of foster care, 18 to 24 years old.
I have loved this conversation tonight. How can people get the latest recording? How can they find out more information about Greater Grace Temple? And how can they follow you and the church on social media?
GreaterGrace.org is the website, greatergrace.org. If you go on the Greater Grace Temple Facebook page, you'll see all of our services. You'll see those that we do live on Sunday worship, as well as other things that we do, like what I'm going to do tonight. After this, our Tuesday virtual prayer service, our Wednesday Bible study in building in person, but also you can go on Apple Tunes. Let me just say all digital music platforms, and you can find the Bishop Charles Ellis III and the Greater Grace Temple Worship Choir.
Again, I have enjoyed this conversation. I was teasing Derico earlier today. I said, we're going to have a long conversation because we've been knowing each other 50 years. So I know I got to cut off because I know you have something else.
I'm glad we were able to make it work. And Carl, let me thank you for being a friend.
It's my pleasure. I like to close by saying, remember to work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, and dance like no one's watching you, and go get Bishop Charles Ellis and the Greater Grace Worship Choir new project. God bless you until we meet again.
Thank you, my friend. Be blessed.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Thank you for listening to the Carl B. Phillips Show. For more information, go to carlbphillips.com.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Follow Carl B. Phillips on Instagram so we can stay in contact with each other.